Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the next class on the organ. So, before starting the class, we have one question uh, regarding the same thing. What will be secondary action if we prescribe wrong homeopathic remedy? So, when we are going through these first 70 aphorisms, it is very important to remember the aphorisms which we have already done. Because, like in the starting, when we started with it, with the organ, I told you that organon, the aphorisms of the organon are like stairs, they're interconnected. So the way we go more higher, it is basically built on the lower steps. So it is very important that we always remember the previous aphorisms because if we can remember those things, then only we can reconnect with the aphorisms which are coming ahead of us. So, like this question that what will happen if we have a wrong homeopathic remedy? Wrong homeopathic remedy means a dissimilar remedy because right remedy means a similar remedy, wrong means a completely dissimilar remedy. So if we remember that aphorisms, that what happens when there is a dissimilar disease, which is already there is a disease already inside the body, and some dissimilar disease or some dissimilar, in this case, a remedy is given. So what will happen? Now, when we give a homeopathic dose, it is a very, very small dose, very, very um, small dose in means of quantity also, in means of potency also. So, when a dissimilar disease is given, which is weak in strength, so the body will repel that remedy. The body will repel that action. It will not let the medicine act on it. So, if your remedy is completely wrong, there will be no reaction from the body because of the wrong remedy. It will only react if there is simillimum or partially simillimum. Partially simillimum means that it is similar to some symptoms, not all of the body, not wholly it is similar, but yes, it is similar to some symptoms of the body. Then only you can see the action. So most of the times when it is a partially simillimum, it acts more like a palliative, that it will give relief to those symptoms for some time, which it is simillimum to. Once the action of the medicine is gone, the secondary action will come back because our medicine was not able to give relief to the whole disease and the disease is still there. So those symptoms will come back. Even if they are episodic, like for example, if it is something which is seasonal, it will keep coming every season. Every season you are changing the remedy because we are giving a partially simillimum remedy. We are not giving a proper simillimum remedy. So, but if the medicine is completely dissimilar, then it will be repelled off by the body. You will see no action. And this is also given in the Dr. Kent's 12 observations that when the remedy is wrong, there will be no reaction from the body. Nothing. No reaction of the medicine on the body because it is weak and it is repelled. It is a dissimilar disease. It is a weak force, dissimilar remedy, weak force, and it is repelled by the body. Okay. So we'll start with the aphorism 66. We have done till aphorism 65 and we will start with aphorism 66 because today we will uh, complete this the 70 aphorism, the theoretical part of the Organon. So when we are doing the aphorisms, we have a week in between. Take out some 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just go through the aphorisms because when I'm talking from my understanding of the aphorisms. When you will read it or go through it again, so you will have that development of your own understanding. You can relate it with the things which have happened in your observation. So then it becomes a very beautiful combination. So the more you go through these again, and we are not doing more than 4 or 5 aphorisms per week. So just 15-20 minutes, just go through those things, and it will become more, the idea of what is going on. You will start seeing those things in your practice, in your patients, that yes, this is the primary action, this is the secondary action. Why the medicine is not working? Because it is a dissimilar disease, very weak. So we have to find a proper simillimum. How our body, our vital force, the organism, they all react to these things, how the dynamic action is seen. And you will be very amazed to see the action of a materialistic remedy when it is given, like and the action of a dynamic remedy, the remedy when it is acting on a dynamic plane. They are completely different, completely different. And it is a very amazing experience when we observe that thing, because when the medicine is acting on a dynamic level, it gives relief to the patient wholly, completely, because there is no part of the body where the dynamism is not there. When you give the material dose, it will only give relief to that particular symptom, that particular part, that particular pain. The rest of the body will not feel good after that. It will not be a renewed thing, energized thing. And this will be a very common comment or very common statement which will be given by the patients once they have got, that simillimum, that antisoric remedy, that simillimum remedy. They will always come with the statement that, that it has changed my life. So we'll start with aphorism 66. So it is a continuation of that primary action, secondary action aphorisms. And obvious now, this aphorism, although we have discussed it last time, uh, not in detail, but in small part, when we were talking about the curative action when a homeopathic medicine is given. So we'll go through it again. An obvious antagonistic secondary action, however, is, as may readily be conceived, not to be noticed from the action of quite minute homeopathic doses of the deranging agents on the healthy body. So, because when you give a homeopathic means similar to the disease. So, when you are giving a force which is basically similar to the disease, the antagonistic secondary action will not be seen, like we have done in the case of that opium, in the case of purgatives, in the case of laxatives, because now those are the opposite actions to which the vital force gives the secondary action, antagonistic action. We are not giving the opposite action, we are giving the similar action, similar which is going on the body. Naxwamika, when given to a healthy patient, have a tendency to create constipation in the patient. So we give the Naxwamika to a patient who is already constipated. Although the other symptoms are also there, the patient is hypersensitive, he is chilly, irritable personality. We give him Naxwamika. So when the Naxwamika is going in the system, the primary action is to produce the constipation, not to relieve it. So it is just producing the same action as the body knows. So there is no opposite action. So the body has to deal with this thing in a curative manner, that it will just remove that action of the medicine on it. So that is why we say it will be in the coming aphorisms, it will be more clear in the aphorism 69, that basically our medicine is going and replacing the natural disease, the original disease. They're just replacing it, and it sits on its chair in the organism. And the vital force acts upon the medicinal disease and removes it. Because the medicinal disease is itself small in strength. So the action of the medicinal disease also goes away. So this is how the disease is removed. A theoretical part, the part which is experienced, which we have seen in the experience. Although you will also remember the aphorism somewhere behind, where Dr. Hahnemann has told this thing, that it is not of much big matter that the how the medicine acts and how the disease is removed. It is not much to think about. But still, he has given a theory, a philosophy about it, that how basically the medicine it acts. So the action of quite minute homeopathic doses of the dearranging agents on the healthy body. A small dose of every one of them certainly produces a primary action. So it is not that it does not produce a primary action, it produces a primary action. But what kind of action? It is not an antagonistic. It is a similar action, action which is similar to the processes going on in the body. That is perceptible to a sufficiently attentive observer. It is a very common thing. The life, the commonly, if we see the life force, not the vital force, but general life force everywhere, it acts in an antagonistic way. How? There are few examples. A very common example, everyone talks about it, everyone thinks about it. The more a person tries to be happy, the more sad he becomes. Some from somewhere, some kind of stress will come, some kind of things will come which will make him anxious, which will make him sad. Although he was trying to be happy, he's doing everything to be happy. But the reaction of the life force is completely opposite. It is completely opposite. This is a common nature of the force, the life force, that if we are producing something against it, it will always repel back. A person who is trying very hard to earn money, earn money, earn money, from somewhere, some kind of bill will come, some kind of expenses will come, and he will be again back to the same point where he was. This mostly happens. A person who is trying to save the money, save the money, save the money, something will come up, some kind of emergency will come up, that the reserves or the saved money, it will be used. So the life is always acting antagonistically. It is a common thing. It is a very common phenomena which is seen. Maybe we don't give much importance to it. Maybe we don't see it consciously. We are not attentive. We are not aware about it. But it is always happening. We have a very famous in our region. There is a very famous idiom, or a saying, that if you go out of your house empty stomach, somehow you will not find time, or the food will not be available to you outside also. For example, if you are going to some party or marriage, and I want to be, so something will happen that that you will not be quite able to relish that thing. So most of the time it is that the things act antagonistically when we are going against them. There is more force which is resisting that process. So same is seen in the body also, that whenever we are going antagonistically against the force, against the vital force, against the actions of the vital force, the vital force will always react, because it is a common thing with the forces. They will react, they will respond with an opposite action. But when we give medicine homeopathically, the primary action is completely different. It is the same thing which is going already in the body. So we are just going with that thing, just increasing it a little bit, giving a stimulus to the vital force to cure this thing. So primary action is already always produced. It is perceptible also, sufficiently perceptible to an attentive observer. But the living organism employs against it only so much reactions, can reaction, as is necessary for the restoration of the normal condition. So the vital force, the living organism will just apply secondary action, which is enough for the restoration of the normal condition, because the opposite state is not known to the body. A person who has suffered from constipation has suffered from constipation. So if we are just giving a dose with a similar action, the body will just produce an opposite action in a way that it will just restore the health. It will just push the action of the medicine away from the body. Whatever the action was done on the body, it will just remove it. So these incontrovertible truths, which spontaneously offer themselves to our notice in nature and experience, explain to us the beneficial action that takes place under homeopathic treatment. Whilst, on the other hand, they demonstrate the perversity of the antipathic and palliative treatment of diseases with antagonistically acting medicines. So, Dr. Hanuman is saying that we have both the scenarios in front of us. The scenario where a patient is getting better with a medicine which was given homeopathically. Then there is a scenario of a patient who was given medicine in an antipathic way or a palliative way. So our nature and experience tells us we have seen these cases, we have seen such patients, the patients who are in a this so much pain that they are being given morphine. So the dose of morphine is always increasing, the pain is always increasing. We have seen so many cases which are like this. So he's saying that we have seen this thing and we can very easily say that it is a truth which is incontrovertible. You cannot control, there is no controversy with this truth because our experience have shown us this thing. Only in the most urgent cases. Now, this is a very important footnote to this aphorism regarding the antipathic way. Only in the most urgent cases where danger to life and imminent death allow no time for the action of homeopathic remedy, not hours, sometimes not even quarter hours, and scarcely minutes. In sudden accidents occurring to previously healthy individuals. Now, this is a usual trend of the organon that Dr. Hahnemann will give you a principle to follow in homeopathy. He gives a principle that this is how the things are done. Then there are sub principles to it, you know, like the subtitles or that that in this such case you have to do this, in such case you have to do this, in such case you have to do this. But the main principle always stays. But according to the situations in the cases, according to how the patient is, what state the patient is, there are some minute changes which we have to do or which we can do. But the main principle, it always stays. We always have to keep this thing in mind. So homeopathic way, that principle is completely strong laid principle that this is the way we have to do this. But sudden accidents, where the accidents were very sudden to those people who were previously healthy individuals, they were very healthy, but suddenly some accident happened. For example, in asphyxia, there was a state of asphyxia and suspended animation from lightning. The lightning, it struck the patient got asphyxia and suspended animation from some kind of suffocation, from freezing, drowning, etc. In these kind of accidents, it is admissible and judicious at all events as a preliminary measure to stimulate the irritability and sensibility of the physical life with a palliative, as for instance, with gentle electrical shocks, with clusters of strong coffee, with a stimulating odor, gradual application of heat, etc. Okay. So in such cases, like for example, patient was suffocated, so some stimulating odor, which is although antipathic, but it is stimulating. So we have to stimulate the physical life of the patient. If the body is not there, where will the vital force reside? So we have to save the body also first. So these kind of uh, preliminary measures to stimulate the irritability and sensibility, the patient is going into a state of insensibility because of that accident. He's going towards unconsciousness, he's going towards imminent death. So at that time, giving some kind of gentle electrical shocks or stimulating odor or some strong coffee or gradual application of these kind of antipathic methods are done. They are allowed, but only in such cases, only in sudden accidents. Some people, Dr. Hanneman will also talk about this, that they took this part of my footnote as an excuse to give antipathic treatment in all the cases. That the patient came with a very strong episode of cough, the patient came with a very strong episode of urinary tract infection, the patient came with a very strong pain. These are not accidents. These are episodes of a chronic disease. Here, he has very clearly mentioned in certain accidents occurring to previously healthy individual. The people, they were healthy, and then they suddenly had this kind of accidents. Okay. So in those cases, we are allowed, or a physician is basically allowed for that time until the irritability and sensibility is restored, to give such kind of things to the patient. But we should not take this part as a, and make this thing a common practice in the our clinics. When this stimulation is affected, the play of the vital organs again going on in its former healthy manner, for there is here no disease. So when this stimulation acts, the vital organs they start functioning again in a proper manner, because the patient was already healthy. So he just needed that kind of, you know, something to come back to the former healthy state. And yet the new sect that mixes the two. So even at the time of Dr. Henneman, these kind of practices they started. Many doctors they started practicing in these ways. So he has written that this there is a new sect, a new group of people that mixes the two systems appeal, thou and vain, to this observation. They take, he's saying that they take my observation, my aphorism, and they mix these two systems. And they tell people that it is written that it is a part of homeopathy. It is not a part of homeopathy. It is just a subsection which is given. Though in vain. Vain, why? Because it does not give cure. It is just again another way to give palliative treatment, in order that they may have an excuse for encountering everywhere such exceptions to the general rule in diseases, and to justify their convenient employment of allopathic palliatives. So they were just justifying, he's saying that they are just trying to justify their allopathic treatment, the palliative treatment, with my this footnote or aphorism, and of other injurious allopathic trash besides, solely for the sake of sparing themselves the trouble of seeking for the suitable homeopathic remedy for each case of disease. When we started with the Organon, Dr. Hahnemann, in his preface, he told us, he told the physician very clearly that homeopathy is a very laborious task. It will need passion. It will need hard work. If you can enter with that state into this profession, even before starting off the introduction, even before starting off any aphorism, he had this warning for us that finding a homeopathic remedy is a very, very, very laborious task. It will require the mental and physical strength of the physician himself. So he's saying that now, just that they don't want to trouble themselves with this kind of laborious task, so they conveniently give those medicines, give relief to the patient for some time, and they tell that we are homeopaths. They want to be homeopaths. I'm talking about the physicians at his time. There are many, because many things were written in his lesser writings also. Dr. Hahnemann's lesser writing, even in the introduction of the Organon, he was very upset about this thing, that they also want to call themselves homeopath, but they are still comfortable in doing this thing, rather than searching the truth behind the prescriptions, rather than what the experience is telling them. They are not understanding it, and keep on doing this thing with the name of a homeopathist. Trouble of being homeopathic physicians and yet wishing to appear as such. They want to appear as a homeopathic physician, but they don't want to bear the trouble of being homeopathic physician. But their performances are on a par with the system they pursue. they are nothing to boast of. So he's saying that, but the physicians who are giving the medicines like this, their performances or the results which they are giving, they are also like the system which they are pursuing, which is nothing to boast of. So just the continuation of the old. So there is here no disease to be removed, but merely an obstruction and suppression of the healthy vital force. The vital force was in a healthy state, it was just obstructed and suppressed. The functions were obstructed and suppressed by the accident. To this category belong various antidotes to sudden poisonings also. So if someone has some kind of poisoning, even then an antipathic treatment can, because it is again a an accident which is uh, taking the life away, like alkalis for mineral acids, hypersulf for metallic poisons, coffee and camphor and ipecacuanha for poisoning by opium, etc. It does not follow that a homeopathic medicine has been ill selected for a case of disease because some of the medicinal symptoms are only antipathic to some of the less important and minor symptoms of the disease. Now, this is again another part, not although it comes under the same footnote, but it is a completely different understanding because many physicians, when they were going through that organ, it was a new thing for them, so there were some questions which keep on coming. And at that time, the telephones were not there, the internet was not there. So everything was done with the letters. When they had any kind of question, they will write the letters to Dr. Hahnemann himself, and he will very conscientiously answer them. So from those letters, from those things, when he started getting questions again and again, so some portions of the answers of those questions he has put into footnotes. So this is a one kind of answer, because many times the physicians might have asked him that, if our medicine which is coming, like a similimum is coming, but it is antipathic to some symptoms, like it produces the complete opposite action. For example, if a patient whom I'm going to give some sulfur, but he is having the cold sensation of hands and feet, but the sulfur has sensation of heat from this thing. So my this thing will be antipathic. The medicine says there is heat in the patient of hand and feet, but my patient is basically having the coldness of hand and feet. So will that be an antipathic thing, that I'm giving an antipathic remedy to the patient? So to that thing, Dr. Hahnemann is answering, it does not follow that a homeopathic medicine has been ill selected for a case of disease because, so he's saying that do not think like this, that the homeopathic medicine is wrongly selected for a case of disease because some of the medicinal symptoms are only antipathic to some of the less important and minor symptom of the disease. There are some minor symptoms of the disease, there are some major symptoms of the disease. Some symptoms are very strong, some symptoms are very weak in the sense they appear sometimes, they are not of much botheration to the patient, they do not possess much kind of characteristic to it, or these things are very commonly seen with some kind of diseases. They are common symptoms of the disease, common symptoms of some kind of medicine which the patient is taking. So he is talking about all those symptoms, that these kind of symptoms, they're less important and are of minor symptoms of the disease. If only the others mean the stronger, well marked characteristic and peculiar symptoms of the disease are covered and matched by the same medicine with similarity of symptoms. That is to say, overpowered, destroyed, and extinguished. The few opposite symptoms also disappear of themselves after the expiry of the term of action of the medicament without retarding the cure in the least. So he's saying if the medicine is completely similar to the well-marked characteristic symptoms, the symptoms which are of the individual, the symptoms which are very strongly present, which are very peculiar, because it is not possible that your one medicine will cover all the symptoms in 100% way. It has to match the characteristic symptoms. That is why many times when I started going to Thailand or to the Brazil also, many times the doctors they ask that you just take very few rubrics, like two rubrics, three rubrics, and you just give the medicine. Because we have to, that is the thing, we have to match the characteristics of the case, not the common symptoms of the disease, not the common symptoms of the population. If you are taking every symptom and if you are putting 20 symptom, 25 symptom, 30 symptoms, that means you are taking every symptom which is there. And usually two or three remedies will always come, which are very polycrest like aconites, sulfur, or nux vomic or pulsatilla. These kind of medicine they will always come in the repertorial chart, because it is impossible for other remedies to cover so many symptoms. So we have to see the symptoms which are very well marked, which are very characteristic, which are very peculiar, and which are very strong and intensely displayed in the patient, wherever they are, whether they are symptoms of the mind, the journals, the physicals, some physical particulars, wherever they are, but they should be of this character. So even if the medicine is not matching the minor symptoms, or it is completely opposite, your medicine shows or displays a phenomena which is quite opposite, even then, if it is matching the characteristic of the case, then it is a right remedy. And that remedy will basically take away the whole disease, even all those symptoms which were not matching to it. Those symptoms also will be removed. And this is very, very commonly seen in the practice. When a similimum is given, even the symptoms which did not belong to the similimum, like in the provings, it did not come, they all are gone, because we have given a remedy to extinguish the disease as whole. We have understood the individuality of the patient and gave medicine according to that. So when the medicine is given in this way, the whole disease will disappear. Even those minor symptoms, even those antipathic symptoms also. So aphorism 68. In homeopathic cures, they show us that from the uncommonly small doses of medicine, we will again talk about it this in 275 and 287 aphorisms, where we will talk about the doses of the medicines. So in homeopathic cures, they show us that from the uncommonly small doses of medicine required in this method of treatment, which are just sufficient by the similarity of their symptoms to overpower and remove the similar natural disease. There certainly remains, after the destruction of the latter, at first a certain amount of medicinal disease alone in the organism, but on account of the extraordinary minuteness of the dose, it is so transient, so slight, and disappears so rapidly of its own accord that the vital force has no need to employ against this small artificial derangement of its health any more considerable reaction than will suffice to elevate its present state of health up to the healthy one. Whenever some medicine is given, any medicine, in any way it is given, it has a limited time of action. If we are taking a painkiller, that painkiller is having a limited time of action. If we are taking a laxative, the laxative have a very limited time of action. It will act for a measured time, small time, for example, 2 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, like this. Even in fevers, when we are giving paracetamol to the patient or ibuprofen is given to the patients, it acts for a smaller time, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, then the fever comes back. So it is a characteristic of the medicine that its action remains for some time. There is a time limit to its action. The action cannot go for a long, long time. So with homeopathy, when the homeopathic cures, what they show us, that this uncommonly small doses of medicine, when the medicine is given and the dose of the medicine is uncommonly small, like first it is diluted to so many parts, billions of times we have diluted it. First, it has become so small. Then, even like, for example, a 200 potency, one drop of 200 potency, it can medicate 500 small 10 number globules. 500 globules. And Dr. Hahnemann has told us to give one of those globules, so minute dose, so small dose. So he's saying that it is just sufficient. For example, first of all, sorry, that this dose is sufficient. It produces the similarity of the symptom and it overpower and remove the similar natural disease. So when the disease is removed, the action of the medicinal disease, it is still there in the body. But because it is so small dose, that very transiently, very slightly, very quickly, it disappears on its own accord without vital force has to do anything. So this aphorism basically Dr. Hahnemann is trying to tell us that once you have given a dose of a medicine, okay, it has replaced itself in the place of the natural disease. So the natural disease is removed. Only the medicinal disease remains after that. And even the medicinal disease, it is not that it will keep on increasing. No, it will keep on diminishing on its own because every medicine has a diminishing action on the body. Any medicine which you are taking, the action of the medicine will diminish. That is why when we are giving medicines in an antipathic way, because the medicine is not strong enough to produce action, so we have to give larger doses, and after some time the action also diminishes. Very common example is syndopa. The patients of Parkinson's, they get syndopa. It is a very common thing. You will see that the patient started with syndopa like once in a day, then it increased to 2 times a day, then 3 times a day, then 4 times a day, because it is producing an antipathic action on the body. The body is going into an excitable nervous system, and the syndopa, dopamine, is basically trying to bring it back to the uh, from excitatory to downwards. So completely opposite action. So in those cases, you will see that the syndopa will stop working after some time, after few years. Even the syndopa will not work because now the body has produced so much reaction to that body. The disease has become so strong because of that antipathic treatment going on and on and on, that the medicine now does not solve that problem. But with homeopathic cures, it is seen because of the minuteness of the dose, because of being homeopathic. If we have to give a patient who is suffering from Parkinson, we have to give a some medicine. We'll give a medicine which has a tendency to produce that kind of trembling or that kind of chorea. So this medicine, sorry, so the yes, this medicine which given in a homeopathic way, it will take the place of the disease being strong in action. The law of therapeutic cure, which we have talked about in the aphorism 26 and then onward to aphorism 41, that it will remove the natural disease and take its own place. And because the medicine is so small, so the action of medicine will diminish away and only health will remain in the organism. That will suffice to affect complete recovery, for which, after the extinction of the previous morbid derangement, but little effort is required. So the complete recovery will come. Vital force will not need to put a secondary antagonistic action to that thing. No effort on the part of vital force will be required to remove this medicinal disease from the body. Aphorism 69. In the antipathic way, now it is a opposite of that aphorism. The homeopathic way, how the vital force reacts to that, and then in the antipathic way, the palliative mode of treatment. However, precisely the reverse of this takes place. Completely opposite thing happens here. The medicinal symptom which the physician opposes to the disease symptom, for example, the insensibility and stupefaction caused by the opium in its primary action to the pain. So the opium is given for the pain, so it produces complete opposite state of stupefaction and insensibility. When we are taking painkillers, the pain does not go away. They just make us insensible. we become insensible towards that pain. So when this kind of opposite action is produced in the body, the symptom is not certainly not alien, not allopathic to the later. There is a manifest relation of the medicinal symptom to the disease symptom, but it is the reverse of what should be. If you remember that allopathic way, Dr. Hahnemann has told that this is a heteropathic way. Heteropathic way means that the symptom and the organ, like when we talked about the that remedy, that medicine given for the diabetes, the teneligliptin medicine, I told you that that time that the medicine is sorry, the symptom is of pancreas, the symptom is of these cells. The medicine is acting on the cells of the intestines. So this is a heteropathic method which Dr. Hahnemann called as the allopathic. That basically the medicine which is given, it has no direct relation to the symptom or the seat of the symptom from where the symptom is coming. But in antipathic way and homeopathic way, the both the ways, they have direct relation with the symptom. The only thing is that in antipathic way, when the medicine is given, it basically acts on that same seat or the same symptom in a reverse manner. So there is manifest relation of the medicinal symptom to the disease symptom. There's a relation in antipathic way also, but it is the reverse of what should be. It is complete reverse. For pain, when the opium is given, the primary action, it causes insensibility and stupefaction. It is acting on pain. It is acting on the pain which is being created there. It is here intended that the annihilation of the disease symptom shall be affected by an opposite medicinal symptom, which is impossible. So what is intended is that we are trying to remove the symptom by acting against it, by forcing it or forcing an effect which is complete opposite. And like I told you, that the common nature of the life force is basically that it is antagonistic. That is why most of us feel struggle. We always say that life is a struggle. Why? Because we are seeing the life in an antagonistic way. If we start seeing the life in a homeopathic way, then it will not be a struggle. But we are always seeing the life in an antagonistic way, and that is why it is impossible to get out of that struggle. Impossible. As it is impossible to cure the patient with an antipathic treatment when we are creating an action which is completely opposite of the action which is given by the vital force. So there will be always a struggle. Two opposite forces are clashing. It is a war. It is a fight. No side is going to win. This force will exert force on this. This force will exert force on this. So they are not going to, neither the medicine is going to win in this way. Neither the physician is going to win. Neither the disease is going to win. But in all this thing, the suffering is only of the patient between this fight, between this antagonistic way of thinking. No doubt the antipathically chosen medicine touches precisely the same diseased point in the organism as the homeopathic medicine chosen on account of the similar affection it produces. This, I just remembered an example of this antagonism. You know, there's a very beautiful saying, and many times, like in many philosophies, this question is asked very commonly, or it is brooded upon or thought upon very commonly, that a living person drowns in the water, dies by drowning in the water, but a dead person, it floats. It floats on the water. So a person who was alive, he drowned or became dead by drowning in the water, but as soon as he became dead, he started floating. The alive man, he wanted to float, he wanted to swim, but he could not swim. He drowned. But as soon as he was dead, he started floating, he started swimming. So this is a very prime example to understand the antagonistic way, the way of antagonism, that when two forces are acting against each other, so it is never going to resolve the problem. It is never going to resolve it. So no doubt the antipathically chosen medicine touches precisely the same disease point. So Dr. Hanuman is saying that even antipathically chosen medicine, it is basically touching the same diseased point. It is acting on the same disease point in the organism as the homeopathic medicine chosen on the count of similar affection it produces. But the former covers the opposite symptom of the disease only as an opposite and makes it unobservable for a short time only. So for the patient and for the physician, the symptom it becomes unobservable for the short time, but it is always there. So that in the first period of the action of antagonistic palliative, the vital force perceives nothing disagreeable from either of the two, neither from the disease symptom nor from the medicinal symptom. So whenever a palliative is given, so vital force does not feel anything disagreeable. It does not perceive anything agreeable for some time, neither from the medicinal symptom, neither from the disease symptom, as they seem both to have mutually removed and dynamically neutralized one another, as it were. So that is why it seems to us, that okay, now the pain is gone, now the bowel movement is okay, now the sleep is okay. But it appears, it gives us a false cure, false feeling of a cure, but it is not removed. Neutralized one another, as it were. For example, the stupefying power of opium does this to the pain. In the first minutes, the vital force feels quite well and perceives neither the stupefaction of the opium nor the pain of the disease. But as the antagonistical medicinal symptom cannot, as in homeopathic treatment, occupy the place of morbid derangement. Because in homeopathic treatment, the medicinal disease, it takes place of the natural disease. But in antagonistic way, in a dissimilar way, we have talked about this when we were talking about the dissimilar symptoms when a dissimilar disease comes. So because it is a dissimilar part, so it cannot take away or it cannot occupy the place. It can just suppress it, subside it for some time. But as the action of the medicine will decrease, the original symptoms will come back. Occupy the place of morbid derangement present in the organism as a similar, stronger artificial disease and cannot, therefore, like a homeopathic medicine, affect the vital force with a similar artificial disease, so as to be able to step into the place of the original natural morbid derangement. The palliative medicine must, as a thing, totally differing from and the opposite of the disease derangement, leave the later uneradicated. So it is just like the aphorism when we have talked about the dissimilar disease meeting the dissimilar disease. When the new dissimilar disease is stronger than the older one, so it takes its place, it suppresses the symptoms of the older disease, produces new symptoms. But as soon as this disease becomes weak, this will start becoming stronger and it will push the new disease away and the old symptoms will come back. So at that time also we talked about this, that this kind of thing happens in a palliative way. So antipathy is basically a mirror image of the same process. Homeopathy is completely opposite to it. The way when we talked about when a similar disease meets the similar disease, but the new disease is slightly stronger, then what happens? So homeopathy has that kind of action on the body. Palliation has this kind of action on the body. So it renders it, as before said, by a semblance of dynamic neutralization. So there is a semblance, resemblance of neutralization, resemblance that, okay, now it is okay. It is the same thing when you give, when we are giving antacid. The word is antacid, anti-acid for the acidity of the stomach. So it is a completely palliative thing, completely opposite. Once a person had some acidity or some heartburn or some indigestion, he takes the antacid. There is a semblance of neutralization. There is an alkali in the antacid. It, you know, relieves the acidic part, gives a neutralization. But we are not understanding this thing, that disease is continuously being poured inside the body. There's a constant influx. And this medicine, or the medicine given in this way, it does not cut off the influx. We have to give the medicine which can cut off the influx. And it cannot be cut off until and unless the medicine acts in a homeopathic way. So there is a semblance, a resemblance. Okay, the acidity is gone. Now the digestion is good. But next time, the next day when he will have, it will be a much bad attack than the previous one. At first unfelt by the vital force, but like every medicinal disease, it is soon spontaneously extinguished. So any action of the medicine which is there on the body with any medicine, it is going to extinguish. And what happens after that is not only leaves the disease behind just as it was, but compels the vital force, as it must, like all palliatives, be given in larger doses in order to affect the apparent removal, to produce an opposite condition to this palliative medicine. So it also compels the vital force to give a secondary action where it increases the disease force. It has to increase it to repel against this kind of action. The reverse of the medicinal action, consequently, the analog of the still present, undestroyed natural morbid derangement. The natural morbid derangement is still there, it is still undestroyed, which is necessarily strengthened and increased by this addition reaction of the against the palliative. So now the disease force is more strengthened, the disease is more increased, produced by the vital force. The disease symptom, this single part of the disease. So the disease symptom, the acidity is the single symptom of the whole disease. This we have to understand. Many times patients also come, doctor, I just have one problem, this acidity. Many times to oblige or to, make the patient also feel comfortable. Okay, okay, I'll give you them for this med. They write down the remedy or they give some medicine just for that particular symptom. That will also act palliatively. Homeopathy does not mean homeopathic medicines. It does not mean only homeopathic medicine. But no, I am doing homeopathy because I'm giving homeopathic medicines. No, this is a way, a principled way how to give homeopathic medicine is homeopathic. So it is different. We have to understand this thing, that homeopathy is basically a system. It is a way of giving medicine. It is a way of understanding the patient. It is a way of understanding the disease. And once we start having that kind of understanding and we start giving the medicine in a homeopathic way, then we will start having very wonderful results. So this symptom is just a single symptom of the whole disease. The disease symptom, this single part of the disease, consequently becomes worse after the term of the action of the palliative has expired. So even this single symptom will become much worse, worse in proportion to the magnitude of the dose of the palliative. The more stronger the palliative was, the more bigger or the more worse will be the magnitude of the symptom. Accordingly, to keep to the same example, the larger the dose of opium given to allay the pain, so much the more does the pain increase beyond its original intensity as soon as the opium has exhausted its action. So the pain will increase as compared to as it was before giving opium. The second episode will be more strong. We will give more opium. The third will be more strong. We'll give more opium. The fourth will be more strong. So the episodes, they will start keep becoming more worse and worse. So sorry, the first footnote, there are three footnotes to this aphorism. So the first footnote, in the living human being, no permanent neutralization of contrary or antagonistic sensations can take place, as happens with the substances of opposite qualities in the chemical laboratory. Now, another thing about the preparation of these medicines, some antacids, some anti-emetics, anti fever medicines. The thing is that all the things which are done, they're done in a chemical laboratory. They took the gastric juice, they applied some chemicals on it, which basically neutralizes it. Okay, this has neutralized this acid. Okay, it is completely neutralized. So let's make the medicine out of this chemical. Let's make this combination and we'll give to the patient. When in a laboratory environment we are taking some part, it is a very limited part. It has a limited quantity, it has a limited amount to which we are giving limited amount, or the quantity of the medicine or the action is put on it. So both the things are limited, and in laboratory condition we see that it vanishes away, it gets better. But in body, the disease is not in a limited form. The influx which is coming is unlimited. The influx of the pain, the influx of the acidity, the influx of the diabetes, or the increased blood sugar levels, they are coming. They're continuously happening on the body. All those stimuluses, all those conflicts, all those things which are going down, they are not gone anywhere. So in a laboratory setting, it is okay. Like for example, sulfuric acid and potash, they unite to form a perfectly different substance, which is a neutral salt. But if you are trying to do the same thing with the acid in the stomach, you have to understand that the gastric juice or the gastric mucosa, it will keep on making that thing. It will keep on making that thing because there is a constant information coming from above to the gastric mucosa to keep producing that thing again and again, which is now no longer either acid or alkaline and is not decomposed even by heat. Such amalgamations and thorough combinations to form something permanently neutral and different do not, as has been said, ever take place with the respect to dynamic impressions. The word is dynamic impression. The disease is coming from the dynamic impression. This is just a material part of the dynamic impression. And until and unless that dynamic impression is flowing and flowing and flowing, the acid will keep on coming. But this amalgamations cannot affect, or they will be completely indifferent to these dynamic impressions of an antagonistic nature in our scientific apparatus. Only a semblance of neutralization and mutual removal occurs in such cases at first, but the antagonistic sensations do not permanently remove one another. So there is just a semblance. After taking an antacid, there is just a semblance of relief of acidity. Okay, my acid is gone. There is just a feeling, a false feeling, a false, uh, um, not a permanent thing, but it will come again because in an antagonistic way, we cannot remove it. We cannot remove it. For example, the tears of the mourner will be dried for but a short time by a laughable play. If someone is mourning, there is some death in the family, someone is very much affected, he's crying and weeping. But sometimes we start talking about light things around those people, make some jokes, make him laugh. So that those tears will stop for some time by a laughable play. The jokes are, however, soon forgotten, and his tears then flow still more abundantly than before. Many times when we are in the life, we are going on in our day-to-day life, there is a stress, you know, creeping up inside, and you are not feeling well, you are mentally exhausted, physically exhausted. Then a thought comes, let's go for outing, let's go for a vacation. We go for the vacation, We feel good, we feel energetic there, we feel the sleep is good, the appetite is good, the symptoms are gone, which the body was feeling, the pains and everything. You're a completely new person at that place. So after 3 days, 4 days, 1 week, it is time to come back. And as soon as you go back, all those things will again start, because we are giving an antipathic. This is also an antipathic treatment. It will only happen for some time. We are giving an antagonistic state. We were in a stressed state. The body was in a stressed state, in a stressed environment. So we took the body and put it in a environment which is antagonistic to it. Very stress free and all this thing and everything. So the time the body comes back to the same environment, it is again in the same state. So even going on a vacation because of this thing, to relax and this thing, it again acts in an antagonistic way. But because I'm saying this, that does not mean, stop going to vacations. But we have to understand this thing, because we have to be aware about these things. We have to be conscious about this thing. There are so many examples around us. There are so many experiences around us. We have to be aware for them. Second footnote to the aphorism 69. Plain as this proposition is, it has been misunderstood, and in opposition to it, some have arrested that the palliative in its secondary action, which would then be similar to the disease present, must be capable of curing just as well as a homeopathic medicine does by its primary action. So many people, again, the letters would keep coming. So that some asserted that even if we give a palliative and secondary action is similar to the disease present, so that should cure the disease. When a palliative, for example, opium is given for the pain, and then the pain increases afterwards. So they are saying that because there is this action of the pain increasing, so it is a similar action. But they don't understand. They did not reflect that the secondary action is not a product of the medicine. This is what we have to understand. That the secondary action is basically product of the vital force. It is not of the medicine. That is why it is called as secondary. It is not primary. Primary action is of the medicine. Any medicine given in the body, it will create a primary action. Now, what kind of secondary action will come? It depends upon what kind of primary action is given, whether the primary action is given in an antagonistic way or in a homeopathic way. On that will depend what kind of secondary action will come. So many people got confused with this thing, the primary action and secondary action thing, that they thought that the secondary action is also of the medicine. But no, he's just clarifying this thing again, that the secondary action is not a product of medicine, but invariably of the antagonistically acting vital force of the organism. So that therefore, this secondary action resulting from the vital force on the employment of a palliative is a state similar to the symptoms of the disease which the palliative left uneradicated. So whatever is coming in a secondary action is basically the symptom of the disease which the palliative was not able to eradicate or not able to cure. They are the same symptoms of which the reaction force of the vital, which the reaction of the vital force against the palliative consequently increased still more. So it creates a more greater defense by increasing the symptoms against those kind of palliative or those kind of primary actions. As when in a dark dungeon, when the prisoner could with difficult where the prisoner could with difficulty recognize objects close to him, alcohol is suddenly lighted. Everything is instantly illuminated in a most consolatory manner to the unhappy wretch. When a prisoner, in those times, the prisoner were put in a dark dungeon, very black place, and the prisoners were put there. But with very difficulty, he could recognize something. Some chains are there, some wall is there, or some platform is there. He could recognize, but with very difficulty. But when suddenly, suddenly the light, a very bright light, At that time, alcohol was used for that thing, and the whole room was suddenly illuminated. That person can see everything in a very clear manner. But when it is extinguished, but when that bright light is suddenly extinguished, the brighter the flame was previously, the blacker is the night which now envelops him. And this is also very commonly seen that in our rooms, in the night when you switch off the light, suddenly everything becomes so dark. And slowly and slowly and slowly, the darkness keeps decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. The more brighter the light, but if you have a very dull light in the room, very dull light, and you switch it off, it will not be that black. It will not be that black. Even these lights are basically producing an antipathic, thing on our this. Ba- That basically shows how the body reacts. Suddenly, from a very bright sunlight, you go into a dark room. It will appear very dark. You will not be able to see. Even if small dim light is there, for you it will appear very dark. Very common example is where from a very bright sunlight, you suddenly go into a theater or a cinema hall. It appears very dark to us. We are not able to find our way. But slowly and slowly and slowly, we can make out where the stairs are, where the seats are, and everything. So the brighter the flame was previously, the blacker is the night which now envelops him and renders everything about him much more difficult to be seen than before. So earlier he could see with difficulty, recognize the things with difficulty, but now it becomes more and more difficult. So all these examples are given as an illustration because these things happen in our day-to-day life. So that from there we can get an experience and understanding that these things, these actions, this primary action, secondary action, primary action, secondary action, this is always going on, always going on. So we just have to be aware of these things. Even in the patient, these things are going on. We just have to start becoming aware of these things. After our medicine, when we give the medicine, what kind of the reaction is being produced? So aphorism 70. It is like a recap, recap of all the 69 aphorisms, what we have done till now. From what has been adduced, we cannot fail to draw the following inferences. So he is saying that all the things which we have talked about, the experience which we have shared, the things which he has told, this is more like an inference, a brief of all the things. That everything of a really morbid character and which ought to be cured, that the physician can discover in diseases, consists solely of the sufferings of the patient and the sensible alterations in his health. In a word, solely of the totality of the symptoms, by means of which the disease demands the medicine requisite for its relief. So he's saying that whatever is diseased, whatever is morbid in an organism, the physician can discover that part from the totality of the symptoms, from what kind of suffering the patient is telling or he is going through, what are the alterations in his sensible being. Those all things, those all symptoms basically tell us that what kind of morbidity or what kind of disease is there and what kind of medicine is required. Whilst, on the other hand, every internal cause attributed it, every occult quality or imaginary material morphic principle is nothing but an idle dream. And he's saying that any internal cause, whether some kind of bacteria, whether some kind of fungus, whether some kind of virus, whatever it is attributed to in an imaginary thing, okay, it is an imaginary thing, imaginary material morphic principle. It is just an idle dream. It is all thing which does not make any sense. And we should, because many times doctors, many I see some things written like, the first remedy for tuberculosis should be tuberculinum. This is again the same thing which we are doing. We are thinking that there's a tubercular bacteria inside the body and we need the tuberculinum anisode more made from it to that it will cure it. There are so many medicines. It depends upon the symptom. It does not depend upon the tuberculosis. It depends upon what kind of symptoms. Even if the symptoms are not sorry of tuberculinum, but the tuberculosis is not there. Many times there is a negative thing for the tuberculosis, but the symptoms demand tuberculinum. Then should we give it or not with that kind of thinking? So he very clearly say that the totality of symptom, it basically tells us that what kind of medicine is required to relieve it. That this derangement of the state of health, which we term disease, can only be converted into health by another revolution affected in the state of health by means of medicine, whose sole curative power consequently can only consist in altering man's state of health. That is to say, in a peculiar excitation of morbid symptoms, and is learned with most distinctiveness and purity by testing them on the healthy individual. So he's saying that all this derangement of the health, all this disease state which is produced, it can only be converted to health. If we want to get the patient back from sick to health, we have to produce another revolution in the organism by those kind of medicines which are proved on the healthy human beings. Because until and unless we don't see what kind of curative power they contain, because it was clearly told in the aphorisms around 15, 16, 17, 18, that the curative power of the medicine is the same power of the medicine by which it produces disease. It is the same power. The curative power is the same power of the medicine which basically produces disease. So in a healthy human being, whatever disease symptoms it can produce, it has the power or to cure those kind of symptoms. Because in the unhealthy being, in the sick being, we need a remedy which is homeopathic. So we need a remedy which can basically produce the same kind of symptoms. So we can only, in this part, Dr. Haniman is saying that we can only know about the purity of this soul curative power by testing them on the healthy bodies or the healthy living human beings. That according to all experience, a natural disease can never be cured by medicines that possess the power of producing in the healthy individual an alien morbid state, dissimilar morbid symptoms, differing from that of the disease to be cured. Never, therefore, by an allopathic mode of treatment. And that even in nature, no cure ever takes place in which an inherent disease is removed, annihilated, and cured by the addition of another disease dissimilar to it, be the new one ever so strong. So he's saying that according to all the experience, any disease, it can never be cured by those medicines which produce a dissimilar state, which have the power. For example, if you want to treat constipation, you cannot give a remedy which produces the state of diarrhea. It can it cannot give a permanent cure. It can give relief for some time in an antipathic way, but it cannot cure the disease. So therefore, by any of that state, some medicine which is producing heteropathic state or an opposite antagonistic state, it can never basically cure or permanently remove or annihilate the disease, because that thing is not possible in nature. That moreover, all experience proves that by means of medicines which have a tendency to produce in the healthy individual an artificial morbid symptom antagonistic to the single symptom of the disease sought to be cured, the cure of a long standing affection will never be affected. Again, the same thing, that any medicine which produces the antagonistic symptom, okay, or which tries to cure antagonistically, the cure cannot happen for a long standing, but merely a very transient alleviation will happen, very transient amelioration for a very small time will happen, which will be followed by its aggravation. And that, in a word, This antipathic and merely palliative treatment in long standing diseases of a serious character is absolutely inefficacious. So, in long standing diseases, in chronic diseases, this kind of antipathic treatment, it is completely inefficacious. That, however, the third and only other possible mode of treatment, the homeopathic, in which there is employed for the totality of symptoms of a natural disease, a medicine capable of producing the most similar symptoms possible in the healthy individual given in suitable dose, is the only efficacious remedial method whereby diseases which are pure dynamic dearranging irritations of the vital force are overpowered and being thus easily, perfectly, and permanently extinguished. So he says that there are three methods: allopathic, antipathic, and homeopathic. So the first two methods, because of producing a dissimilar state of the disease or by being antagonistic to the disease symptoms, they cannot basically extinguish the disease from the organism. The vital force can never be free of the disease permanently. It might give relief for some time, but permanently it cannot remove the disease. So only the third method is left, the homeopathic method, by which the medicine can be completely removed, because in this, when the we have talked about all this thing, that when the medicine is acting in a homeopathic way, it basically removes a natural disease and frees the vital force from this natural disease. And when the vital force is free from the natural disease, only the health remains, because health is a normal tendency of vital force. Becoming healthy is a normal tendency of vital force. We get injured somewhere, we get some kind of cut, the body heals it, because it is a natural tendency of the body to heal, to be healthy. So when the disease is removed, only the health remains back, must necessarily cease to exist. And for this mode of procedure, we have the example of unfettered nature herself. When to an old disease there is added a new one similar to the first, whereby the new one is rapidly and forever annihilated and cured. So he's again talking about those examples where, after the coming of smallpox or some chicken pox or something, cow pox, the old diseases, they disappeared from the body completely and permanently. Some symptoms, they were removed. Okay. So he's saying that nature is basically telling us in its own way, by giving us examples, that this is the way to cure. That a permanent cure or a symptom can only be permanently removed when some kind of artificial or new similar disease is basically given to the old disease. So with that, we have completed our 70 aphorisms of the Organon, the philosophical part, the theoretical part. So from next week, we will start with the practical part. There are some parts.